Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Verity. I'm a specialist art teacher at Whitelands Park Primary School, part of the Kennett Academy Trust. So my first slide shows you examples of the artwork the children at my school have produced. On the left-hand side, you can see a slide which was taken at an exhibition that was held at Kennett. The head of art had invited me to take part in an exhibition called Past, Present and Future, with the Whitelands Park Primary School children being the future for art. On the right-hand side, there are examples. Top right-hand picture is some Year 6 Egyptian art, which I had done with some children in spring, I would say spring 2019, actually, spring 19. And below is some recent work I've done, because Kirsten, Jonathan and I have been involved in writing a scheme of work that can be used for the Explore Award with the Arts Award. And we trialed this in different ways. I presented a PowerPoint to our team of staff here at school and asked the children if they would like to take on the music ideas or the art ideas from this PowerPoint. And the slide at the bottom is an example of some of the work our Year 6 children and Year 4 children produced, looking at the folk art by Helen Geller. So it's beautiful. I was really, really impressed and pleased with their work. So that's just a small example of some of the artwork here at Whitelands. Next slide, please, Eleanor. So when I was first started my contract here at Whitelands, being employed as a specialist art teacher, I felt it very, very important to build up partnerships with our secondary school, Kennett. I went to Kennett and had a meeting with the head of art and also had meetings with the Year 7 teachers. I felt it very important that I was giving the opportunity to work with children in primary school. I wanted to help my secondary school colleagues by knowing what skills were required for children to have experienced, ready for the transition from Key Stage 2 to Key Stage 3. And not only did this help me, but obviously it was really good for the children too. And I wanted to make sure that they were well prepared for that transition. Working with the head of art, it also gave both of us the opportunity for raising the profile of arts in our schools. And I regularly took work from our primary school and held exhibitions in the entrance hall at Kennett, so that the older children could see the type of artwork their primary siblings or the primary children at Whitelands were producing. And it gave the children here a lot of pride to have their work displayed, and it was also going to be seen by the wider community, which was a really good way of establishing things within our whole community here. Also, I was able to, Baz Manning, the head of art at the time, and I, we really developed a good working relationship with each other, and she helped me towards gaining our Silver Arts Mark award. We worked well together on that. Equally, I was supporting her on achieving her Platinum Arts Award, and we both helped each other with our Arts Award. She brought a group of her Year 8 children over here to Whitelands to work with some of my Year 5 pupils on a project that they were doing in order to achieve their Silver Arts Award. So I'm very, very happy at how I've been able to establish relationships with Kennett. It's working really well at the moment, and I think it's a really valuable relationship to have, that you can build up a relationship where you can share good practice as well. Next slide, please, Eleanor. So when I was thinking about when I'd spoken to Baz, I decided I was going to come back to school, and I decided how was I going to, I knew what the teachers at Kennet had told me about the skills that were needed with the primary school children. And I developed this idea that I would like to build up my own cluster group with teachers rather from our local schools. And I went and spoke to my head about this and asked him, well, what do you think I should do? And, this is what I'd like to do. I hope you're in agreement with me doing it. So this is what happened. I wanted to share knowledge I'd gained from working with Baz, with other teachers in my local, within my local area of Thatcham. I wanted to develop relationships with colleagues within our neighbouring schools. I thought that was it was really important to get to know the other art coordinators in our local schools. I also wanted to explore the potential of working creatively and cooperatively with the other primary schools in Thatcham. My background is that I was a specialist textiles and art teacher at secondary level to begin with in my career, and then I transferred down to teach in primary. So I wanted to share the skills and expertise that I had with my group, but also for them to be able to come to the group that I wanted to develop and share their expertise and skills, so that we developed as a group where we were bringing really good practice and really enjoyed sharing, to really share during our meetings. And also developing a cluster group was supporting, at the time, our ArtSmart aims, as it meets a number of the criteria needed. And when I arrived at Whitelands, I introduced the idea as well of going for an ArtSmart award. And like Kirsten, we achieved our Silver ArtSmart award in 2018. On the tiger artwork that you can see, this time last year, I was asked to do some COVID recovery lessons, and each subject leader was given a budget. And I decided it would be really good to run after school art lessons for children who had missed out on their art. So I did a series of lessons on pencil and charcoal for year 4 and 5, and they came to the lessons in rotation. So that's an example of another way that I wanted to ensure that art was being sustained at Whitelands. Next slide. So what are the aims of the Thatcham Cluster Group? Well, we agreed as a group that we would provide opportunities and share ideas and practice. And this is one of the things that we really enjoy as a group. We look closely at our roles as art coordinators, particularly in raising the profile of art in our schools. I myself felt that the idea of creating a cluster group was that I wanted people to come to the cluster group each half term and be able to take something back to school that they could use. I wanted the cluster group to be a forum for people to share ideas. I would give some CPD. A lot of our cluster group meetings have actually been practical sessions as well. So the teachers that came had something really concrete to take away with them. And the presentations and PowerPoints that I have done at the meetings, I've also shared with the teachers as well. So they've always had something that they can take back to school to share with their staff, so that they are too working with their pupils to ensure that they are managing to have the skills they need and develop the skills they're needing to get on to secondary level for their transition from Key Stage 2 to Key Stage 3. And more importantly than ever, we're a really lovely group and we really like to support each other. And not only do we just contact each other at our meetings, but it's really nice to know that the people in my cluster group do email me at any time, asking me questions, asking my advice. And it's been a really successful thing that I feel I have developed here at Whitelands, and I would thoroughly recommend it. Next slide.
Can I jump in on there?
Yes,
Because
of
actually,
course.
I actually stole Verity's idea. So I have owned up to that to Verity. But I decided when we were talking about it, it was such a really good idea that I set up an Art League cluster group with I've got about 10 schools in our local area now that are in the Art League cluster group. I started mine in the summer, and we did a joint project for Bicester Festival, and then it's sort of like, as Verity was saying, you know, it's about asking them how do you want it to go. And we've actually got next week our meeting, one of the teachers in the other schools is going to be doing some training for us about how to teach watercolour throughout the school. So and you know, it's really lovely that actually other schools will come in with ideas of how to improve. So I'm very grateful to Verity.
Thank you, Kirsten. Something else I wanted to say was I also very much included the head of art at Kennet with my cluster group, and she held some really valuable training sessions over at Kennet, one of which was a practical session using air drying clay, which when you work in primary schools, you know, is a very difficult medium. It looks fantastic, but when it dries, often it cracks. And we all agreed that that particular training session was invaluable, and I will always be internally grateful to Baz for suggesting, you know, going along with my suggestion and running it for us. And another member of staff here at Whitelands has real strength and is very creative and enjoys using Modrock and creating 3D sculpture. And she has also been to one of my cluster group meetings, and again we had a practical session creating birds out of modelling wire and Modrock. And again, it was something that the group were able to take away with them and be able to take their staff through how to use Modrock and modelling wire back at school in an after-school session. So it's ideas like this, it's supporting each other. So a typical cluster group meeting, I would have all of this information up on the whiteboard as my group come into the meeting room. I ran this one on colour mixing. I always like to go through the agenda. We have our welcome and our mugs of tea and slices of cake before we start. Obviously, it's at the end of a school day, and I thoroughly recommend that if you want to start a cluster group. It's a very good thing to have a lovely welcome, catch up, and then I always present the objectives for the night session. And in this particular one, it was a practical session on tint shades and colour mixing. And then we all discuss sharing good practice for using colour mixing. Key skills required for the pupils to achieve by the end of Key Stage 2. So again, linking all the CPD training I'm doing to the end of Key Stage 2. The children need knowledge of the colour wheel. They need to know the knowledge of cold and warm colours, knowledge of complementary colours, understanding how to create tints and shades. And again, it's all about using the right vocabulary, which again, very important for the building up of knowledge of our pupils. This particular meeting was a practical session. We created tints and shades of colours using blues and greens as our base colours, black and white as our tints and shades, and Prussian blue. And we created a water picture of the sea. And it there says for activity 2, create a background using colour mixing skills and then use a variety of mixed medium to add individual colours and a context. And I went on to show them how colour mixing and dividing the sheet of paper into several different or many different areas, creating a different colour for each area on the page, created a really nice flowing different picture of sea and how the colours can change. And then they created fish using printing, collage, oil pastels. After that, obviously, and while we're doing it, we're sharing our ideas. So then we always set a date for our next meeting. This picture is our stand, our Whitelands Park primary stand at the Newbury show 3 years ago now. And it just gives you an example, some of the artwork that the children have achieved here at Whitelands. We have a school pond. So our theme at the Newbury show, it's the theme for primary is always outside the classroom. So I based our artwork totally on the children going to explore the pond, linking it with science and doing some beautiful observational artwork, some nice felt work and stitching, some marbling, multimedia pond pictures, and then creating the hanging dragonflies. Okay, thank you, Helena. I've asked 2 of my colleagues in my cluster group I asked them to write a little quote for me to show you as an audience how the impact they feel the art cluster meetings have for them. So I'm quite happy for you to read those. And I think it comes out, I think you will see if you read that, it's very big on us sharing our classroom practice as professionals. It's just such a lovely forum that I feel I have in my cluster group. And Eleanor, you've joined us for a cluster group meeting, haven't you?
I have, yes, and I can vouch for the fact that they're very jolly meetings, even when they're virtual.
Oh, thank you, Eleanor. Yeah, I really value this group of people hugely. Next slide. So our plans for this year with my cluster group. We have our first meeting next Thursday. Obviously, it's going to be absolutely wonderful to re-establish our face-to-face meetings. We're going to have an audit, and obviously in September we identify and agree focus for this year's programme. Through working with Eleanor, Jonathan and Kirsten, through the whole creative arts programme, I have been very luckily sponsored and given the training to become an Arts Award advisor. This is something I'm going to be talking to my group about. And I'm also going to discuss with them some of the tutorials I have been using for Google Classroom and for working here in school during the current 18-month period, where it has been really difficult to be demonstrating art skills inside a classroom because of social distancing, as well as finding the right level and differentiated tutorials for children who are working from home, and something that is going to be inspiring for children working from home. This is something when I had a cluster group meeting back in July, and this was something that came up quite a bit, that my group wanted to know more about virtual tutorials and, cherry picking the really good ones to use. So that's something I'm definitely going to be sharing with them on Thursday. So how do you establish a cluster group? Here are my top tips. Contact the art coordinators in your local schools and invite everyone to an initial meeting to discuss the whole idea, which is exactly what I did 6 years ago. Allow time for people to introduce themselves and get to know each other. Agree a platform for group communications. that I think is a really fundamental thing to do. Plan meetings and set dates in advance, and don't go too big on it. One a term to begin with is absolutely fine. People are very busy in school. If you want to have too many meetings, you'll find that maybe your group won't be able to always attend. And if you limit it to one meeting per term, you will find that people will look forward to that meeting and they will make it. Agree a focus for the programme and each meeting. Again, this is something we're going to be doing next week, and then we will plan our 3 other meetings for the year. Gather offers to lead sessions for the group. So if you know somebody else in your school who has a particular art talent and you want to involve them and get them to come and lead sessions for your group, do that. If you want to talk to the head of art at your local secondary school, or in my circumstance, obviously, as we're an academy, it's I would definitely go to the head of art at Kennett and say, I'd love you to come over and do a workshop with my cluster group on something that we as a cluster group have agreed we'd like training on. Definitely in your meeting, as far as you can, include a practical activity. I had such an amazing meeting where I introduced them all to acrylic inks, and we drew and filled in hummingbirds. It was really lovely. It doesn't sound particularly amazing to you guys, but it really was. And the teachers loved looking and using acrylic inks. They really had no idea about them. So that's something I really remember. And decide on a collaborative event at the end of the year to aim for. Now, our collaborative event is something that I talked to Matthew, my head, about. I decided that if I was going to run a cluster group, it would be really wonderful at the end of the school year to hold an exhibition and to really celebrate primary art and invite people from all the schools and their communities to come and view the exhibition, because I'm really passionate about primary art. That is something I feel so strongly about. Keeping its profile really high in our schools. And yeah, that is actually totally me. That's my passion. So our exhibition is very important. I wanted it to be an exhibition to celebrate primary art. I was also encouraged to make it a competition. So it has 3 main areas. It has a black and white part. You can enter things that are a medium with black and white. You can enter colour is another of the titles, and 3D, including any textiles work and clay and ceramics. So you enter in year groups, and it's just wonderful. And of course, everyone brings their exhibits, and we set up the night before, and there's a real buzz about the whole hall. And the head of art at Kennett and the head of art at the other secondary school, Trinity, are our judges. And so they come along and judge the work, and yeah, and then we have an award for best school and best piece of artwork. So it's the Kennett Cup for the school that scored the most points, and the Trinity Trophy is for the most outstanding piece of artwork. And yeah, and the cluster group really enjoy entering that as well.
Lovely.
So that's how those are my top tips.